Thanks for listening to our podcast, Living Life with the Rogers. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Kira, and this is a lifestyle podcast where we talk about hashtag all the things. Listen in.
We are back. Living Life with the Rogers is back. So we took a little hiatus, partially because we're running around like crazy people raising. How many kids do we have? Like 10 at this point?
Feels like it.
So
and we went from 3 to 4. It feels like we went from like 3 to 8.
Yeah, that's fair. And then we did homeschooling. I took on a couple contract jobs.
I've been working a lot.
Yeah, you're working. So yeah.
How many nights are we doing soccer?
I think at this point, if we have subscribers, which we may have like 1 or 2, they were at this point. They were like, we might have to unsubscribe. These people are like dead.
I mean, it's been like 2 or 3 weeks. Let's not be too dramatic.
No, it's been like, see, that's the
No,
problem.
it said like September 3rd was the last episode, and it's like September.
There is no way.
Yeah, fact check.
Yeah, I have nothing to fact check it with.
Listen, it's been
like
a couple weeks.
It's like the old days before we had fans.
And who's to say we're not going to go a couple more weeks without recording? Life is insane. Remember the last episode when we talked about saying no?
Well, we said no to our
this
podcast. I knew you would. I had that feeling.
Okay, but it's like, in all reality, like, we can't let the kids die. We can't let our businesses die. We
can't let the podcast die.
But what I'm saying is,
our 2 listeners need this.
Unfortunately, as much fun as this is, it can fall low on the priority list.
I guess so. So today we get a fun topic. We're gonna feel a little bit of some positive vibes, if you can.
We need all the positive vibes we can get.
So this is really more. We're gonna just preach to ourselves and try to encourage ourselves, and then if you learn anything from it, great. If not, hopefully Kira and I are better off because of this. So today's topic, it's joy. Joy. Joy.
That's Delaney's middle name. Why did I choose that middle name? Do you know?
Well, one, because all our kids' names their middle names start with a J, so that's one reason. So you're kind of stuck with that.
Yeah, because literally I was like, there are no other J names because we have Jane, June, Jean, and then Cameron thought Jade was a stripper name, even though that's what I wanted to pick.
Well, we just turned this into a PG-13 podcast real quick.
So I was like, well, Joy it is. So she just, most people be like, oh, you picked it for like, because it's from the Bible, or it's so like inspiring. And I'm like, no, I just didn't have any other options.
People that really know you know better. But yeah, people, kind of out and about could be like, oh, that was so sweet that you did this. It's awful. Yeah,
but she has been joyful for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, if having acid reflux is joyful, then yeah, she's been a whole bundle of joy.
Her demeanor is sweet though, and she's almost 2 months, and she's recently started smiling, and it's really stinking cute.
Oh yeah, that smile's way better than anything I could deliver. That's for sure. All right, so I'll kick it off. So joy. So we want to talk about joy, and it gets confused a little bit with happiness. I can't stand Webster's dictionary's version of joy, or the definition of joy. For the sake of time, I'll read it to you, but I'm telling you, it's not that great. So joy, according to Mr. Webster, is the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. But, like, if you've ever even just accidentally opened the Bible for, like, 2 seconds, you'll realize joy is, like, so much more than that. Like, this is such a human definition of joy. It's like, I got a brand new... I've always wanted a Chevy Silverado truck. So, like, you pull up with the Z71 Chevy Silverado. That's what, like, Webster is saying. I'm going to feel joy only then. And it's, like, bull crap. You can experience joy a lot more than that.
What is the label for that kind of feeling?
That's a little bit more of like the happiness, right? Yeah. Which is Webster says it's a state of well-being and contentment. So,
which is what we want to flesh out, the difference between happiness and joy.
Yeah, a little bit of that, and then a little bit of the benefits of joy. Why should we choose joy? Why choosing joy in today's climate seems just about impossible at times. All that fun stuff.
So if Mr. Webster is wrong, which also, by the way, who wrote the dictionary that you use from Google?
Merriam-Webster.
Is that a person?
Yeah, I'm assuming so. We need another fact check. So it's Webster's dictionary, and anybody that's had to ever look up a word, you're either using the Oxford Dictionary or the Webster Dictionary. It's the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and I think
Well, who decided he was the master of words?
he did. He self-proclaimed himself as as the master of words, and he took the time to write the definitions on a lot of words.
Well, he can just throw his words in the trash. So when
Wow, man, he's not
so
that bad of a dude. Like you're painting him out like he's just like an animal, and it's like this guy like
I
probably
mean, all
really
his
cared.
definitions suck. So why don't you go
You've
ahead
only heard like
and
two.
tell? No, I feel like you've brought up his definitions on other podcasts,
Oh,
and I'm
my.
always like,
Just
what?
unimpressed.
Yeah, like, do better.
Do
Can you be better, Mr. Webster? All right. So what do you think?
Well, I guess if we're ever gonna have any hope of getting advertisements from Webster's
Not gonna be
dictionary, we
Webster.
just shot that. That's dumb.
I don't think anybody would want to sponsor me because they're like, wow, you're just really like not that nice.
Yeah, if any company's looking for somebody that's abrasive, insulting,
a little crotchety.
to the point where you might get canceled, we are your people. We are your spokesperson. So give us a call, please.
Oh,
We're
my.
very interested in promoting
All
your
right,
stuff.
give us a good definition of joy. How about that?
Well, so I always kind of go back to scriptures. So Romans 12:17 says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer." So it says to be joyful in hope. So that gives me the idea that like there's some sort of, and joy and happiness kind of tie in and they're kind of different, but there's a little bit of choosing the state of mind of hope. And let me tell you something. I would say you and I are doing this right now. We're about 7-8 weeks into Delaney coming.
8 weeks.
And
Remember, her birthday's August 1st.
yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
She's 8 weeks on Tuesday.
Well, that's a whole nother side story. So, moral of the story is it's a state of mind that you go into is joy, and it's a state of mind that you're choosing to be hopeful, and so it takes a little bit of work, right? It's kind of hard to do. The other thing is also part of the fruits of the Spirit. It's in Galatians. Joy is one of the fruits of the Spirit that come from salvation and receiving the Holy Spirit. All this jargon to basically say it's of God. Joy comes from God. It's a big difference in just happiness, where happiness is me driving in my Chevy Silverado. Happiness is me getting a good night's sleep, finally, right?
Yeah.
So, a little bit different. So I want to kind of spend a little bit of time, like, well, we kind of already have, but unpacking the joy versus happiness, especially in today's climate, because I feel like our world doesn't understand joy. They get happiness, and honestly, they call it the pursuit of happiness in America, right? So clearly, we get this whole
Which is
pursuing
ironic
happiness.
because, like, America's miserable. So
It is. It's so true.
it's so miserable. I think the big thing that makes joy stand out from happiness is that it's accessible at any time, despite what you have in a physical standpoint, what you have in terms of health, what you have in terms of wealth, but it comes from, well, heaven, really. It's out, it's not of this world. It's from a different universe, a different spirit, a different,
Yes.
so it's what's the word, supernatural, is that the word I'm thinking
I like
of?
that word. Let's use it.
Yeah, so it's like it's bigger than us, and it's bigger than happiness, and it's bigger than things that are just gonna wilt and rust.
Can we look up
die.
the Merriam-Webster dictionary of meaning of supernatural?
Yeah, well, it's probably crap. So I think that's the big difference I feel between joy and happiness is that it's accessibility. Like any time that you are worshiping God, or you are praying to God, or you're seeking His presence, you're praying and asking for His presence, you can feel contentment and hope, which I think are tied into joy. And so whereas, like, again, happiness is like if you base your happiness on like your wealth, well, anytime it's the end of the month and you pay all your bills, you fall into a deep depression, or
Especially in today's climate. Ugh.
yeah, every time you pay your taxes, your happiness goes right down the tank.
Yeah, well, we're small business owners,
Ugh,
and we have a
don't even.
confession. We just had to do our quarterly estimated taxes,
It's
which
really
is a
gross.
fancy way of saying you take all your hard-earned money and just hand it over to somebody else.
Yeah, I literally lose 25% of everything I make to the government, so that's fun.
Yep. So we were going to do a tax podcast, but we'll save
And the
that for another
government does
time.
not make me happy, so
You do
they
not
do
get
not.
joy.
No,
You don't get joy.
I'll tell you where joy doesn't come from: the government.
Yeah, well, there's this whole, so that's the issue with joy and happiness that you're pointing to, is like happiness is all what the world gives you, and joy is a supernatural thing that only comes from God, right?
And I think happiness is based off of like it's a very feeling, so it's kind of like I feel like it changes a lot because it's like depending on like the mood you're in, whereas like joy is more of a you're saying like a state of mind, something that you choose, something that you can be at any time. So it's more of like a discipline, and then it becomes like a part of your like people that I think that are joyful, I'm like I feel like they've practiced the act of being joyful so much that it has made them joyful, so they don't let their mood
Or
or their
circumstances.
climate determine how much joy they have. There's a girl at the gym actually, and I don't even know if she loves Jesus, but she just reminds me of joy. Kimmy, I don't know if she listens to this, but she's just always like
Yeah.
positive, and I bet you she has a really good. I should ask her next time I see her. She's like, you're talking about me and you don't even know, but I bet you she has like a good practice of like gratitude and sharing love and light with others. Like she just has that mindset. And so I think it's probably something that she practices in her personal life in order to have that demeanor.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, you don't just like walk into that. Just like I don't walk into big muscles or anything that comes good. I heard it put this way, and I loved it. Is the difference between joy and happiness? Like joy is in the heart, but happiness is in the face. So it's like kind of like an outward expression of what's going on inside. And so I think that's why we keep linking joy with God so much, because He's working on your heart, and you're also putting in the work to try to stay connected to the source of it all, right?
Yeah.
So that I think what I kind of want to talk about and spend a little more time in is like how do we put joy into practice? Because I really don't think like we can align ourselves with God. We can, you know, all right, I check all the boxes, right? I go to church, I pray, I do all those kind of things. But I feel like joy isn't just something you just kind of wait and like God just sends it via like the Amazon truck to your front door. Like you have to put in the work yourself, right? You have to position yourself. You have to choose it. You have to control your mindset. So you got any like suggestions? I think a lot of people wouldn't want to hear from you, Kira. You're balancing a small business, balancing kids, the best husband you could ever ask for, a podcast, all that kind of stuff. How do you actually choose joy?
Well,
In 10 seconds or less.
I'm not gonna claim to be the most joyful person, so I don't really know
You know
if
what? There
I'm
you
the
go.
one to
First
ask.
step number one is admission.
Acknowledge your weakness.
Acknowledging. That's great. That's it. So how do you choose
I would
joy?
say
Step one.
seasons that I have seasons of this. I feel like in some seasons I'm good at choosing joy, and then there's seasons where I'm just like, meh, I just give up. I'm like, it's just life is responsibility is too much, and I let my circumstances overtake my joy. But I think in seasons that I am good at fostering joy, it's because my head and my heart are grounded in the right perspective. And I think I usually am good at keeping like a big picture of things. I think we have to be like eternity minded in our perspective so that we remember that everything that we're experiencing and going through is so short compared to eternity that we're going to have in heaven once we cross over. And also so it just gives you like a gratitude perspective of, okay, well, this isn't going to last forever. I'm learning and growing in this season, and also let me like take check of what's good right now so that I can be present and find peace in those moments. I think like sometimes the kids will like bring me down to earth, like when I'm stressed about like how much I'm working, how much editing I have to do, the toys are a mess, and then like I don't know, a kid will come up and just give me a smile or give me a hug or something. I'm like, okay, like sometimes I tell myself that I've been struggling with anxiety lately, and I've been telling myself I am healthy, my family is healthy, I have nothing to be anxious about. And even like, I love when people post perspectives of like, because it reminds me, because again, I'm not claiming to be an expert at this. Um, where they say like, well, yeah, the dishes are piled up, but at least like you have babies to cook for, or the laundry overrun with laundry. Okay, but what a blessing that you have everything you need and you have healthy babies. That like, I think at the end of the day, like when we remind ourselves of the truth that our future is secured no matter what happens here, we will have a peaceful life in heaven. And also there is so much good in our days, despite how much it does not look good. Then there is joy to be found in everything.
And a big takeaway, and the best part I like that you said is you don't. It's not always easy to have it. It's not always present. It's not. It's.
You got to
I
look
mean,
for it
there's
sometimes.
there's seasons where it feels like joy is impossible, right? But here's the reality: is the more you put it into practice, the easier it is. The better the foundation is laid for it. The easier it is to access it, and the easier it is to choose joy during a hard time that's inevitably going to happen to everybody. Everybody's going to experience grief, pain, suffering, etc. So the more work you put into it now, the easier it will come later, right? So that's a practical principle for anybody.
Mm-hmm. I had another point and now I forget. Maybe I'll think of it. What do you do to cultivate joy in your life?
So what? Yeah, no, I had a great idea too, and it just like
That's
it's gone.
called
It's like
newborn
it's
life.
like where,
Sleep deprivation. My brain processes like half the speed of normal when I'm sleep deprived.
but for me, it's a big mental head game is choosing joy. So for me, it's always been shifting my brain. My brain, the factory setting, it wants to go negative. So like the second something bad happens, like okay, I pay the bills and we lose money in our savings account, my head starts to go, okay, now we're just gonna go bankrupt. Now we're gonna be him, and it goes down this aggressive journey of negativity. Like the negativity feeds off more negativity. And so what I've had to do is I've had to sit there and sometimes that thought happens, right? So I get stressed out about savings, right? And I go, okay, this month really, sucked, right? For lack of a better word, it was a bad month. And we just paid all our taxes. It was kind of miserable. Then I go, a thought will start entering my brain of like, oh, now you're not going to be able to afford the van you need, and oh, like just a toxic thought will enter. I go, okay, that's fine. I don't freak out. I had the thought. Then I start replacing that thought with something on the positive side, right? So I start replacing it with something of like, you know what? All the way through all the years, through all the challenges, through all the drama, God has always provided for us. Me and Kira, you and I always work hard. We're willing to do whatever it takes to pay the bills. We'll be fine. So, what always held me up in the past was always if as soon as I got a negative thought, I just got so defeated because I really thought that even having a negative thought meant I was a bad person. But then once I learned to accept it, look, negativity is just everywhere. Those thoughts, can come into your brain and it's fine. Just don't let it become your identity, right? So I learned to just stop condemning myself every time I had a negative thought. Just, okay, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And start replacing it with something good. And that's what you kind of alluded to with the kids. Like, just when things seem so bad, that's when they give you a smile. They give you a hug. Like, replace those negative, toxic thoughts with just even one positive thought, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, call them like little glimmers of heaven. Is like you'll be like drowning, and then like you'll have one little thing, and you're like, oh, all right, we're gonna be okay. It's like a little kiss from heaven. Like you're gonna make it, because sometimes we've asked ourselves multiple times over the last 2 months, are we gonna make it? And it's like we will. It's just anyone that's been a parent knows that newborn life is rough, especially with 3 other kids. But you just keep putting one foot forward. The other thought I was thinking of was that when I was in church this morning, I did feel joy when I was worshiping, and a lot of times we don't like feel again, like it's really hard to base all of these things off of your feelings because your feelings are always going to let you down. Like
Mm.
we don't feel like doing anything. We don't feel like going to the gym. We don't feel like cleaning. We don't feel like being intimate with our spouses. We don't feel, there's all these things we don't feel like doing, and we have to just like override it and choose what we know, like what our brains are telling us is going to be good. But a lot of times, like I walk in, I don't feel like worshiping, and they've talked about this up front, and it's so true. It's like you're tired, you're thinking about all the things you got to
Hey, life
do,
just
whatever.
beats you up,
Yeah,
you
like
know?
yep, you're defeated from life, and then you start to worship, and you're like, oh man, and then you just kind of like come alive again. And you're like, there it is. There's the joy that I knew that the Lord would provide me. But again, like I definitely would say that my highest moments of joy are when the presence of the Lord and His Spirit is there. That really fills me up with a lot of joy.
Yeah, I've referred to her before, but Dr. Caroline Leaf, she does a lot of she writes a lot of books about like mental health and how your brain works. And I keep saying this too is like, okay, just choose one thing positive to focus on. Choose one thing that's truthful to focus on, and start with that. And then just like any good thing, okay, I go to the gym 1 day a week. Well, then the next week try to go 2 times a week, and even if you go for 10 minutes, then the next week go 2 times a week and maybe for 30 minutes, and just keep upping it more and more and more and more. And you'll notice that over time, you work a lot less harder on it. It just comes more natural with time. Like I know you and I, Kira, we've talked about this. Like when we first started going to the gym, like it didn't come easy. It was hard. It seemed like every time we were trying to get out the door, it was just chaos. And then we started building that routine, and it just gets easier. Now it's like a day without the gym, and we're like at each other, being like, "Oh, I gotta work out. I gotta, it's because we've cultivated that environment, right?" So same idea with our brains. We have to cultivate joy, and we do that by doing, aligning ourselves with God, and aligning ourselves with the scriptures, aligning ourselves with worship, aligning ourselves with what's the truth. The truth is that I something positive. I have 2 legs. I have my health. It could be worse, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just focusing on that joyful mindset.
And I think if you've ever seen someone not be in good health, or you've had seasons where you haven't been in good health, that will remind you of the perspective of joy, because it's like I think that's something that's so easily overlooked is your health. Like you just assume that you're going to wake up and be in good health, but it's like that's not the reality for a lot of people. And just that fact alone, like having your health is a reason to be joyful. So it's like there's so many examples of people who haven't been in good health and have chosen joy despite of it because they knew that where they were going was going to be a good place. But so even that's the most like incredible example to me. But I'm just speaking to, I'm sure, the majority of our audience who are in good health, and it's like, you know what, just be joyful today because you are healthy. It's very simple.
Yeah, I do that when I go to the gym, knowing I'm going to wreck my body here, but I'm like thankful that I even have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the high that comes from the endorphins is excellent.
Oh yeah, and so the one thing that I wanted to put out there, because I feel like what I don't want to do is shame our listeners. What we're saying is that there's been a lot of times in our life where we haven't felt joy, where we haven't been positive, we've chosen everything else. We're really hyping ourselves up here, but something to keep in mind with joy, and I love this saying, joy doesn't need a smile to exist. So joy isn't dependent on the smile. It's a mindset that you choose to go into, right? So I think for all of us that are like, oh, I wish I could just go around and just have a big smile on my face and look like a doofus and be super positive and everything. My farts are rainbows. That's not what we're saying. We're saying choose joy despite the hardships, despite the chaos, despite the exhaustion level of it all. But I really want to go into the biggest, like, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but the benefits of joy. There's so many benefits that make it like a no-brainer to choose it. And I'll kind of kick off to you in a second, Kira. But I was even thinking about, like, from a health perspective, I think a lot of times people think, oh, choosing joy is just like you're just choosing to be positive. But what you're not realizing is there's health benefits for that, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health. Like you were kind of alluding to, Kira, like you've been battling some anxiety, and we did a podcast, and I've shared my journey on anxiety, and that's what it was. It was my toxic brain with all its negativity was just like killing my soul and killing my mental health, and that impacted my physical health, which was what the anxiety was doing. So we forget that by choosing joy and aligning ourselves with God and choosing, to lay that foundation for ourselves, we have tangible health benefits that come from it.
Yeah, so what I was saying earlier is the last couple weeks I was battling anxiety, and again, I'm not typically, I have a pretty chill personality, pretty laid back, pretty like big picture, like let's go with the flow here. Everything's like a Bob Marley, every little thing
It's
is gonna be all right. It's kind of my vibe. But then what was happening is that our schedule was too full, which again we talk about in the last podcast. So that's a recipe for disaster. Um, but my mindset, my perspective was just completely off. I was just so focused on like I was just looking at like everything that needed to be done and not choosing to find any good in the days. And just literally letting the stress kind of overwhelm me. And so what anxiety looks like for me is chest tightness. Kind of feels like I'm going to have a heart attack. So that's really great. So I'm
Yeah,
just
love
like
that for me.
walking around all day with like a feeling like I have a rock in my chest.
But you better not be like going off to the hospital. Leave me with these 4 kids. Don't you
I'm
dare.
like, see, actually, I can't function right now. So bye. Um, So anyway, I think this podcast is definitely geared towards me because then this last week I was I was living with that anxiety for like a couple weeks, and like I have a hard time. I don't know. I think because my factory setting is to like live a very like peaceful, content life when I'm struggling with anxiety, it really like bothers me. I don't like living my days feeling like that because I'm like, why this short life? Why should I live my life feeling like this? Like it's miserable. So then the last week, I really had to do a lot of work on just exactly what we're talking about, getting my mind back on track, clearing up the schedule a little bit, which actually, thank God did that for me this weekend. He kind of brought this storm and was like, everything shut down. And I'm like, we really needed that to kind of just like reset ourselves because life had been so full. And worshiping and again, just like being grateful for what I have, just spending my day. Like someone recently said, well, there's two things that people have been saying lately that stuck with me. One was be where your feet are. So that's a really good quote alluding to the fact that like, yeah, there may be lots of things coming or things that you have to do, but you obviously cannot be in two places at one time or do multiple things. Multitasking is really not something that we're supposed to do for our brains.
It's a stupid Merriam-Webster word
Yeah,
that only existed because
did Mr. Webster create the word multitasking? Probably.
somebody came up with the American dream and was like, oh, I got a great word for us. Let's do multitasking. We do 10 things at the same time, and we'll just ignore anxiety and everything else that comes from it.
So, like, when
nothing.
I'm with the kids, then I'm focused on the kids, and Zoe is like, she is insane, but if you actually just, like, be in her world for a little bit, like she's like it's fun, so it's like
I wish I could live in her world where I can just destroy everything and just
she's just like has zero F's to give, and I kind of love it, but
I wonder where she I wonder where she gets that from.
Yeah,
Kira, would you have any clue?
No idea. So I was like focusing on that, and then it's like, okay, then at night when I can focus on my work, and I actually had to delete Instagram during the day because that was making me feel more scatterbrained, because it was like I didn't really have a lot of pockets of time. But then when I did, I'm like getting on Instagram, looking at, overloading my brain with all these different pages, and then worrying about what I'm posting and sharing. Like that was just making me feel even more scatterbrained, because I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed that leads to my anxiety is that this isn't an anxiety podcast, but I'll just finish this up. And then
It just
we were
became
talking
one.
about this. Is that you feel like you're being pulled in too many directions. And I think that social media makes us feel that way too, because like you're scrolling and you're not getting anything like cohesive. It's just like this joke or this Halloween tutorial or this fashion item. I'm like, oh, maybe I should order that from Walmart. Or it's like, it's like so random and which is great when you just like. So what I've noticed is like if I do it at night just to kind of like wind down or whatever, which even then I don't even think that's the best way to do it. I think a book or scriptures
like that.
Right. But like there can be a time and place for it. But when I'm already living a very chaotic day where I am being pulled in multiple directions, then that's just going to it's going to add to the chaos, which is what I was noticing. So anyway, I was trying to reserve my social media time for like when I had my free time at night. Kids were down. work was done. It was like, okay, now if I feel a little scatterbrained right now, but I can afford to do that. Um, so anyway, all that to say, brings me back to joy and my perspective. That was the biggest thing. My mental state had gotten in a really like just disorganized kind of negative place, and like we said earlier, negativity feeds off of negativity, positivity feeds off positivity. So I was kind of having to like get my brain back on track, and choose joy in this chaotic season of life.
Well, and that leads perfectly to our unpopular opinions segment. Almost kind of like we planned this, but here's a confession: we actually didn't plan
We
this. So
just wing everything.
Sometimes we just have dumb luck. So, but actually, so my unpopular opinion, I want to kick this off, is that you're either choosing joy or you're choosing chaos, anxiety, depression, etc. So, all that to be said, you got to pick one or the other. And by taking no action towards choosing joy, then you're just allowing the other side to win. And the other side, it's kind of like a current. If you've ever been out in the water for all the, like I like fishing, so I get it. So you go out fishing based on the currents, and the currents are either going in or they're going out. And most fish swim with the currents, unless you're a trout, which you're just pretty cool and you just go kind of against it sometimes, and this and that and all that fun stuff. But moral of the story is you're choosing and you're heading in the current of joy by, aligning yourself with the creator of joy, and by choosing, thoughts, actions, and things that lead to joy. Or you're taking the current the opposite way and you're choosing chaos, anxiety, depression. And I'm saying this because I was the best at that. My inaction of choosing joy, I just decided to ignore it for so long. I just let my toxic thoughts and life just kind of carry me like a current towards deep anxiety, deep depression, all sorts of chaotic thoughts, all sorts of negative thoughts. And it would, one negative thought led to another that led to about 10,000 others. And it got so bad, it affected my physical health. Like I literally couldn't like control my body. Like physically, I was, the blood pressure. I was probably like, close to having a heart attack. So like, it was breaking me down even physically too. So, if that other side of the current of chaos and depression, anxiety can affect your physical body, what's to say that choosing joy? How do you think that might affect your physical body? Right? Something to think about. I don't have the answers to all that, but I gotta imagine your blood pressure is gonna be pretty on point, and I gotta imagine there's actually plenty of other health benefits that are to that's the reason why God brings it up in the Bible. Is he created us to be a person that chooses joy, that aligns ourselves with Him, so we can have better overall health.
Yeah, definitely think joy affects your physical health as well, not just mental. I mean, obviously it's big mental, but physical as well. I guess my unpopular opinion is that your personality doesn't have to be like loud and boisterous and over the top in order to be a joyful person, because I think that's what we typically think of, but that's not always the case. Like to me, someone who's joyful again is someone who just has like a positive outlook on life, like is someone who can still say, I'm struggling with this, or this is hard right now, but like the majority of the time they're choosing to look for the good, uplift others. They're someone who seems kind of like peaceful and content with their life.
Can I add in like somebody that's just grounded?
Yeah, grounded is a good way to put it. Like they know who they are, they know where they're going, they know how to uplift others and bring other people along for the ride. They see the good in others. They try and, affirm or encourage when they can. So nothing.
Hey, do you know a person like that? Because if so, that'd be kind of fun to hang out with them.
Yeah, I mean.
Are you saying you are?
No. Well, sometimes.
Like, I mean, yeah, you could just call me anytime.
when I'm making good choices, yes, I can be. Especially like on wedding days, you and I both try and go into wedding days with a good headspace and be joy and light for people on wedding days.
Oh yeah, we love to pray before for the couple, for our, for us, all that. Yeah.
So when my heart and my mind are with God and in the right place, yes, it can be, but not
can
always.
we do a whole podcast about your heart and mind when it's not with God? Because I
It's
feel like
kinda
there'd be
gross.
some crazy
I believe the
content.
word that you used to describe me, and it's so loving and romantic, is crotchety.
Huh, yeah.
That's how
pretty
you
good.
describe me when I'm not.
I mean, okay, so if I throw you under the bus, what would be one word you describe me when I'm not alone with
Cranky,
myself?
grumpy.
I mean,
I usually just say, "Why are you cranky?"
is this a Seven Dwarfs or is this?
Sleepy, mopey, dopey.
Yeah, pretty
Anyway.
much all of them.
That's my unpopular opinion, is that it's not necessarily like a personality trait more as it is your just like overall vibe and demeanor. Like it's, you don't always have to be smiling or loud or like, oh, like
I think
it's
the
a lot
most-
more than that, because some people
Yeah.
do that just as like an act or like a show. Like it's not legit, they're just like performing for people essentially, and it's
Or
like,
maybe you're trying to like muster it up, like you're trying to make it yourself, right? And you're using your own energy. But honestly, the people that I've met that have had the most joy are usually older. They've been through a ton of chaos, a ton of crap, a ton of garbage, and they've ridden the storm. And so they're grounded. They just seem level-headed. All the qualities that you just said.
Mhm.
And so, but and it goes against what the happiness was, which is like thinking that everything needs to go your way and that's how you get joy. No, most joyful people I've met are the people that have gone through the hardest, worst things you could ever imagine.
Mhm. Yep. All right. Well, I think it's time to stick a pin in it, as they would say.
Yep, and I guess tune in 6 months when we do our next one. our biannual podcast.
Hey, I think we're going to get 2 in September, which, you know what? For having 4 kids and a 7-week-old and a very full life, I'm okay with.
Our next podcast is No Excuses.
Hashtag do it anyway.
Yeah,
What was Sammy talking about this morning? Sucketh. They were leaving the town of Sucketh.
The town of Sucketh. We've been in the town of Sucketh ourselves, and so it's been a little crazy over here. But you know what we're going to do is, to the best of our ability, and because we have no ability, but what we're going to try to do is align ourselves with the true source of joy, and we hope and pray that you choose to do the same.
And that's Jesus Christ himself. You heard it here.
Yeah. Preach it, sister. Amen.
Not Webster. Webster is not
Webster,
it.
thanks for nothing. We don't want your sponsorship. We don't care about you.
Jesus is the way,
Yeah,
the truth, the light.
And I can't
All right,
wait till
I'm
somebody
tired.
sends us like hate mail. I'll be like, Merriam-Webster was a Christian. He was a nice guy. Like
Probably.
we're gonna get something. Like he was probably like a saint. He probably like took care of the needy and the orphan and the widows. And we're gonna be like,
I just think he should get some better definitions. That's all. Or is it a she? He? She? I just assumed it was a man because
I
it was
mean,
stupid definitions.
I mean, hey, so we'll leave it. I guess we need to go get a nap or something. So we'll leave it.
That
at
would be good.
So,
All right. Well, you can find us on Instagram at Living Life with the Rogers, and we will catch you next time.
All right. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Living Life with the Rogers with Cameron and Kira.
You can find us over on Instagram at Living Life with the Rogers Family. We love to post on there, and we will check in on DMs and comments and get back to you guys if you have any questions. And if you would like to hear future episodes, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See ya.